Information Security, Part 2, Information Falsification. Today, I would like to dwell upon a very important question concerning falsification of information when it is transferred in the Internet or over a mobile network. In order to understand how it works, let's turn to literature and history. The famous novel by Alexander Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo, comes to my mind. Its plot is based on interception of the young captain's letter. Moreover, the contents of this letter were changed and the author's handwriting was forged. That forged letter was the reason why the main character of the novel was put in one of the most strict prisons in France. The intellectuals of the 19th century were shaken by that novel. Why? The matter is that in the 19th century, opening and inspection of letters was officially forbidden in many countries, including Tsarist Russia. Yes, the state intercepted letters, but it was illegal. The situation changed after the beginning of World War I. The governments were hunting spies inside their countries, so it was quite reasonable. After World War I, it turned out that the state badly needed control over correspondence and telephone conversations. What for? Not only to fight against crime, but also for some political parties to gain the political power in the country, and, most important, to maintain it. It's worth mentioning here that overall control was most rigorous in the Soviet Union during Stalin's rule and in Nazi Germany. At this point, I'd like to cite some historical facts that were discussed in the press a great deal. In particular, Marshall's plots and repressions against them. We'll not dwell upon the issue, because much has already been written about it. It's strange and puzzling that the Marshalls, who had fought in the First World War and in the Civil War, literally during one interrogation day, gave testimony discrediting themselves, stating that they had worked for foreign secret services against the Soviet Union. Some of them said that they had been tortured, but there's no direct evidence of this information. On the other hand, we know about Zoya Kosmodomayenskaya's heroic deed, about other partisans who endured tortures in Hitlerite torture chambers for weeks, even longer, and didn't give away their secrets. So why did the Marshalls give evidences after one day of interrogations, thus actually signing their death sentence and discrediting their names? It is easy to explain. In the 1930s, tape recorders were produced only in Germany, but Germany didn't sell them to anybody. It was officially forbidden. Quite close relations between Germany and Russia in the military field at that time made it possible to deliver tape recorders to Russia through the National Commissariat of Internal Affairs. Naturally, those tape recorders were used to record the conversations of people who could actually be dissidents to the existing regime. Moreover, only a few people knew that at the time it was possible to falsify a person's voice and speech by means of special editing and a tape recorder. Now, imagine the reaction of the Marshal of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Tukhachevsky, when during an interrogation they presented him a forged recording of his telephone conversations. Most probably, the Marshal didn't know that it was possible to falsify his voice and speech during telephone communication. It must have been a serious psychological shock for him. It's clear that Joseph Stalin, the head of the most powerful state in the world, who had suffered in gendarmerie and police torture chambers, naturally knew that any testimony could be beaten out. And, of course, he didn't trust written testimonies. But when he heard a person's voice, and Stalin had a good ear, he probably couldn't suspect that Henry Yagoda and Nikolai Yezhov could forge the voices of the interrogated marshals. Naturally, He trusted the voice and the words of the person that was recorded. So Stalin made his final decisions on the basis of the tape recordings. Very often, they were fatal for the condemned. Therefore, we can understand why Joseph Stalin, speaking about Mikhail Tukhachevsky's crimes, bluntly said that Henry Yagoda collected compromising evidence on his employees and some other members of the party. There was always an intense political struggle for the leading posts in the Soviet Union. Therefore, compromising evidence was used to change certain leaders who were out of favor with the country's top officials. That's how Nikita Khrushchev was replaced, and then some other heads of the government of the USSR and Russia. It is also an interesting fact that historians still haven't explained why Alexander Korzhakov was dismissed. He was the closest friend of the president of the Russian Federation, Boris Yeltsin. They often had dinner together, and suddenly the president, in only a few hours, makes such a cardinal decision to dismiss his friend from all the occupied positions. Why did it happen? Simply, Yeltsin was provided with a recording of a telephone conversation, naturally a falsified one, where Alexander Korzhakov mentioned that he wanted to become the president of Russia. It was enough for Yeltsin to take at once a decision to dismiss Alexander Korzhakov. In the same way, with the help of voice and speech falsification, and voice is trusted by many country leaders, compromising evidence is collected and, for example, given away to the press. Are we protected against it in the 21st century? Actually, we are not. We know about a huge number of cases in Russia when swindlers forged the voices of the victims, called their relatives, gave them false information about a road accident, and asked them to bring a certain sum of money urgently so that the person responsible for the road accident wasn't sent to prison. And many people were fooled by the swindlers' tricks and gave them money. According to official police reports, swindlers used such tactics to earn hundreds of millions of rubles. Russian police mailed written warnings to citizens, warning them about telephone swindlers and urging them to be cautious. Every year, this form of fraud becomes more and more widespread. The matter is that we all use mobile telecommunication. And what is it? It is digital communication lines. With the present level of technology development, it isn't difficult at all to falsify a person's voice in the digital format. Can the examination always define the voice precisely? It's a very serious question. It makes people helpless in the information world. In the past, handwriting and letter contents were falsified, like in Alexander Dumas's book, and as a result, a person was put into prison. Now, in the century of information, a person can be put into prison because his speech and voice were falsified. Why do swindlers do it? To compromise, ruin, or even put a person into prison. These new methods of information falsification, especially voice forgery, are very dangerous because we usually trust the voice. People have to understand what dangers are threatening them in the modern world, I'll say in the information forest or the information jungle. After all, it is clear to everyone that it is mortally dangerous to enter the real jungle without a suitable weapon. But people don't understand that when they enter the information jungle, they also have to be protected. Otherwise, they will be killed. Many people say that they have nothing to hide when they speak, for example, over the phone. But if a person has any property, has any relationships with other people, he has to know that there are envious people who might want to jeopardize him in the eyes of his relatives, friends, or his boss. Therefore, it is necessary to protect our information, prevent its falsification, and maintain it unchanged. As I have already said in my previous lecture, always lock the door leading to your information space, and don't give the key to anyone. Keep it only to yourself.